Hey guys, today I have swatches of the China Glaze What's the Scoop collection for summer 2023. There are 6 polishes here altogether. I got these from polishpick.com, so I will link that website down below. Eventually I will probably change that link to Beyond Polish though, since I do have an affiliate code / coupon code with them. But as of now, the only place that I know of to get these is PolishPick, which is where they came from. So 6 polishes here altogether, and I will get into the swatches. So the first polish is called Berry Yummy, and this is a yellow, not quite like a neon highlighter yellow, leaning a little bit more towards a primary yellow. So these are all different varying degrees of jelly, so they do take a little bit to build up. This was pretty sheer on the first coat, but it was fairly even, not completely even, but good for a yellow jelly. The formulas here are a little on the thin side, so I did find myself flooding my cuticle fairly regularly throughout this video because I just couldn't get used to the formulas. So you'll see that off and on because it's thin, it was running down the brush really quickly, so I would end up with more on my brush than I was ready for. This built up fairly well for me in 3 coats. I did also try these over white because they reminded me a lot of the older neons that you needed to put over white, so I just kind of wanted to see what they would look like. I don't think that it was entirely necessary, but I did do it anyway. And this did build up pretty well on its own in 3 coats. So that is 3 coats of Berry Yummy, and then I also have it here over white. Not a huge difference over white, and I still needed 2 coats over the white anyway, just a little bit brighter. The next polish is called Frozen in Lime, and this is your neon lime green. This was also sheer and a little bit like a crelly-ish jelly on that first coat. I did try to do a thinner coat here to combat what I knew was going to happen with the polish being a little bit thinner and running down the brush. It did not help. This was also decently even for being a more sheer lime green jelly. It was not perfect, but it wasn't terrible either. I did use 3 coats here to get it fully built up. You could definitely still see some nail line and some uneven spots in that second coat, so I did need the third. This did cover completely for me in 3 coats. I did also put this one over white. I put them all over white because I'm kind of just conditioned to put a neon over white if it has a slightly more jelly, crelly finish. So that is 3 coats of Frozen in Lime. This one actually worked out pretty well over the white. It definitely is brighter. I'm not sure that it's necessary, but it went over the white very evenly as well. The next polish is called Glad You Melt Me, and this is your neon kind of yellowy orange, macaroni and cheese orange, if you will. This one was way more sheer and jelly than the previous 2 polishes, where the last 2 leaned a little bit more crelly side. There was a slight creamy quality to them. This one is very sheer, very jelly. That's not necessarily a bad thing depending on how you look at it, because without that kind of slight creamy opacity to the base, there's less streaks, so it covers a lot more evenly. It built okay on the second coat, but is obviously still very sheer with that nail line showing. The formula on this was also a little bit on the thin side, but I didn't flood my nails this time. 3 coats built the color up a little bit more on this one, but it was still fairly sheer. You could definitely still see the nail line. I also suspected that this one dried a little bit slower than the other polishes, and that was confirmed with the next color that dried normally. So that is 3 coats of Glad You Melt Me, and then also 2 coats over the white. Didn't love it. It was still pretty uneven after 2 coats, and I was not about to do like 4 or 5 coats of color. It was definitely brighter though. The next polish is called Will That Be a Cup or a Cone? And this is the brighter neon pink. So we're back to that more crelly-ish formula. Not quite as crelly as the yellow and the green, but definitely not as sheer and jelly as the orange. Still a little bit thin, but not terrible. At this point, I was kind of just getting used to it. It also covered fairly evenly. Not like blowing my mind good, but not bad either. It covered pretty well on the second coat. You can see a few uneven spots and a little bit of nail line showing, but that was covered up completely with the third coat. And like all colors in this shade this time of year, this is showing a little less vibrant on camera. So that is 3 coats of Will That Be a Cup or a Cone? This one was also okay over white. I don't think that the difference was significant enough to need to do a white base though. The next polish is called Tambourine, and this is the hotter, brighter pink. This one is a little more jelly than the last one, more similar to the orange. It does cover very evenly because of that though, but it's also a little bit more sheer. Formula is also on the thinner side here, but at this point in the swatches I was used to it and I kind of had a feel for how to apply it. The color is a little blown out here in the second coat. It was fairly accurate on the first coat, but as it got brighter, my camera couldn't really handle it. I had a little bit of nail line showing here after that second coat, but I did not think it was enough to worry about a third. together. So that is 3 coats of Tambourine. Brighter over white, but not enough that I think it's worth all the extra steps. Also seems more uneven on camera than it did in person, which is weird because it's the opposite of how that usually goes. The next polish is called Freezer Burn, and this is your typical neon blue shade that's not actually neon, that is in all neon collections. This is also a jelly, a little bit more of a true jelly and less of a crelly like some of the other polishes in the collection were. It is fairly opaque and fairly even. It covered pretty well for me on the second coat. I can see a little bit of nail line, but it wasn't enough for me to worry about a third, but I do think if you have longer nails and a wider nail line, you might want that third coat. So that is 2 coats of Freezer Burn. So I put this over white because I had put all of the other ones over white, but I really would not recommend it. It's uneven, but that's also happened every time I have ever tried to put a blue from a neon collection over a white base. You know, on first swipe of these, I actually thought I was going to be really disappointed, and I did put them all over white just for shits and gigs, but I don't actually think that I needed to do that. They were fairly even and covered pretty well on their own for the most part for being jellies. I do think that these are intentionally jellies. Jellies are very trendy right now. I'm seeing them all over the place. So I'm going into this collection, or I went into this collection kind of assuming that these are intended to be jellies, not necessarily intended to go over white like the neons and the summer collections of the past always were. These did throw me back a bit though. I mentioned that in my OPI video as well, that a lot of these colors and formulas between spring and summer this year are reminding me very much of stuff that we saw like 9 years ago coming out from all these brands. That being said, I was pretty happy with Berry Yummy. I think this is a really nice yellow. I like this on its own, and I actually liked this over white as well. And then also really happy with Will That Be a Cup or a Cone, because this built up really well on its own. I did show this over white just because I kind of felt like I had to at that point in the video because I had done it for all the other colors, but this performed very well on its own also. So like this, and I've mentioned 3 times since I sat down today that I really like pinks and yellows for summer, so these shouldn't surprise anybody. So that is the China Glaze What's the Scoop collection for summer 2023. Again, those came from polishpick.com, so I will link that website down below. And then also might change that to Beyond Polish when those are available there. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will talk to you later. Bye.